we have built virtually everything on the foundation of excellent client service and attention and relationships. And if our people, our lawyers, our non-attorneys, if they don't understand the purpose of what we're doing, there is no way that they're going to deliver that good client service, or excellent client service is what I require and demand and hope for.
Welcome to the Tip the Scales podcast, where we discuss running and growing your law firm. I'm your host, Maria Monroy, president and co-founder of LawRank. Today, I am joined by a very special guest, Michael Jeffcoat from the Jeffcoat firm. He's the CEO and founder. He's actually literally right here with me. I'm doing the intro a little bit different this time. Michael has multiple practice areas, so not just PI. We talked a lot about culture, marketing, and I really loved the morning huddle.
It is incredibly important for our tribe to start the day together and to be on the same page together. That's how we do it.
I love it. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Michael.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm
Glad
so
to be
excited.
Here. Me too.
All right. So why don't you tell us your full name, your role at the firm, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. I'm Michael Jeffcoat. I'm the owner and CEO now of the Jeffcoat firm in South Carolina. We're based in what we call the Midlands, which is the middle of the state, of course, but we serve clients all over the state of South Carolina.
Awesome. And where do you have offices?
We have offices in Columbia, and we have a few offices surrounding the city, including we're about to open an office in the area where I grew up, which we're really excited about that building opening in November.
Yeah, your team told me about that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
What I find really neat about what you do is you don't just have a personal injury practice and website, but you also have a criminal defense practice and website. But tell me, what has that been like, and why did you decide to have two practice areas?
Originally, when I started the firm, it was a solo practice that I started in 1999. And we were, at the time, based in Lexington County, which is a very, very difficult jurisdiction for plaintiffs. And frankly, at the time, I needed the cash flow, right? I needed to diversify because plaintiffs' cases were so difficult in that area. It's one of the most conservative jurisdictions in the South, and certainly in South Carolina. But it's home, and my family's been there a long, 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 long time. I'm not going to bore you with that, but many, many, many decades, right? So that was where I started the solo practice. And at a certain point, the PI practice had grown to such an extent that I needed to hire an associate. So I decided to hire someone who was focused just on criminal defense and take that completely off my plate, right?
Got it.
So that's how it started. And, the vast majority of firms that practice in one of those practice areas, they don't necessarily handle the other practice area, especially as they grow. Smaller firms do, but as firms grow, they tend not to do that.
Correct.
We've chosen to continue with that. And we are very, very excited about the future of both the criminal defense practice and the PI practice. We've got great lawyers who focus on each area, and we have great non-attorney staff, and we really, really like having both in our firm.
But I'm sure it's had some complexities, right? Because what I see a lot is criminal defense firms wanting to move into PI and completely phase out the criminal defense component, right? Even though it's what initially kind of feeds the machine, right? It's what keeps the lights on. I have to assume that there have been some complexities with having these two different practice areas. I mean, just intake alone, like how do you guys handle intake? Do they have to press 1 if it's for criminal defense or 2 for PI, or does the operator or whoever, the intake specialist, then decide? And then do all of your intake specialists handle both? Can they do intake for both? How does that work?
So at this point, we call them new client specialists.
Perfect.
So our new client specialists do handle both, and they are trained on both. And of course, that adds to the complexity in a very obvious way.
Yeah.
But it's worked well for us. And for the time being, at least, we intend to continue with that. We will probably eventually spin things off if we continue to grow, and I'd hope and believe that we will, right? But that's how we do it currently.
And then do you guys educate your clients? Like you close out a criminal defense case. I know it's like super different than PI, but do you then say to the client, like, hey, if you ever need us for personal injury, we also, offer those services and vice versa?
Sure. We stay in contact with our clients from whatever practice area, whatever case variety they come from. And so they better know about all of our practice areas, right? So yeah, we absolutely continue communicating with them and ask them to consider us for those other areas and for referrals in the other area and that sort of thing as well.
Got it. You said you started the firm in 99?
Yes.
So it's 25 years.
Yes.
That's
This
amazing.
is our 25th anniversary. Yeah.
Congrats.
Thanks.
And you guys have a brand, right? Most firms that I talk to typically don't have a brand. They're more on the trial side. So can you talk to us a little bit about the marketing you've done to build the brand? Because you guys do offline advertising. And then how do you handle the again, having the two practice areas when you're, doing a billboard or things of that nature, and kind of like take us back to what you've done in these past 25 years?
Wow, that's a lot.
I know,
right?
I'm sorry.
That's a whole lot. So I would say this, in terms of the brand, we believe internally in the firm that our job across the practice areas is to help everyday individuals who are in crisis of some kind. That may be someone who's gotten in trouble or a family member who's gotten in trouble. It may also be, of course, an injury or a wrongful fatality, that kind of thing. So it makes sense internally with our folks to understand that no, we don't have institutional, governmental, corporate clients. We're helping everyday people. And that gives us a sense of mission internally, right? But it also makes sense. I mean, a lot of people out there, they may never need an attorney. They may need an attorney for real estate closing, or again, a family member may get in trouble, right? Or someone's in a car accident, or someone has a medical malpractice or a nursing home case, that sort of thing. So it's not as confusing, I don't think, to our audience, to our client base, our potential client base, as maybe we think it's going to be. And, a lot of attorneys always ask me, well, are you missing on some cases because you're handling both? Will a PI client be offended if you're handling criminal defense? And my answer is, I'm sure they are, some of them. I'm sure we have missed on some cases. But at the same time, we also are getting a lot of cases by having that other side of the practice for us. Right?
I think the benefits outweigh the
downsides.
The downsides, for sure.
And what having these seemingly disparate practice areas, it presents its own challenges because you can have this faction and that faction, this team, that team, all that sort of thing that any organization of any size can struggle with, right? But we work really hard to try to make sure that our attorneys are integrated, and we try to spend time together so that we can get to know one another. And we do that across the staff too. I mean, there's nobody's more important than the other. We're not, we have no intent to phase anything out, right? Or anything like that. And I think that our staff knows that. I've certainly told them that, right?
Yeah.
We intend to grow both sides of the practice and maybe add other practice areas down the line. We'll just have to see.
What about family law?
So I have a personal dislike for that practice.
Doesn't everyone?
Well, some people love it, and it's a great thing, and it's a need out there, right? But when I was a solo practitioner, I handled a lot of family court cases.
Interesting.
A lot of that stuff. But at a certain point that I remember well, one day I had just had enough, and I decided I was not going to take on any more of those cases. And I took at the time a significant financial hit by phasing that out of the practice. But at the same time, it was better for me personally, since I was handling the majority
It's
of that
very
work.
dramatic. Very.
It was for me.
Yeah.
Draining and stressful.
It is.
I don't like drama and nonsense and hurtful actions and feelings and that sort of thing in my own life. And I didn't like, some people call it bystander stress, right? I didn't like being around that. I loved my clients, always have. I think I always will, across the board. But again, at a certain point, I needed to exit from that practice area. And I don't want to be working on that as I direct the firm and we lead things and move forward and so forth. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to think about it. So we don't handle that.
It can bring the worst out in people, I think, when they're going through, especially a divorce and obviously we work with family lawyers too. So
of course,
I think you have to be a really grounded person to not like feed into it. And it can be tough because sometimes like the other lawyer is doing things that are just kind of shitty. And then like you're like, well, I don't want to be that person. But then you almost have to be sometimes I think it's a really, really tough practice area. When my husband was in law school, there was this employment lawyer. This was before we owned LawRank, that said, whatever you do, don't let him go into family law. Although it's actually a very lucrative, I would argue it's more lucrative than criminal defense. It's a very lucrative practice. After PI, I think it's the most lucrative practice. I think people don't realize how lucrative it can be.
Sure.
But okay, so going back to the traditional marketing, the billboards, everything that you do from the get-go, did you know you wanted to do that?
The trajectory, I guess, was we focused first and foremost on the client service piece so that we could ask for referrals from our folks, right? So, and over time, we've layered things on top of that, which is to your question, right? So the next thing was SEO, right? That was critically important. We weren't doing PPC. I couldn't pay for PPC, right? So, but eventually we layered in some PPC. We layered in LSAs when that happened, and we're very quick to adopt that one. And then we started doing some social, basically, some video content and that sort of thing. Especially over the last 5 years, we've done more and more of that.
Oh, so you were early.
I guess so.
That's early-ish for 5 years. That's early in my opinion for law firms.
Yeah,
for sure.
We have room to improve there, certainly, and that's a new focus for us to get better and better there as well. But at any rate, so then we started folding in some social. We started doing videos for social. And then moved to OTT and then to, broadcast cable type TV as well.
Has OTT worked for you?
I'm in that situation a lot of people will describe, which you don't know what is working well and what isn't. I'd say it worked fine for us. Mm-hmm. How's that?
No, that works.
Yeah.
I've yet to hear firms say it works great. Like everyone's like afraid to pull it, but isn't sure. Like, it's the one thing that I'm not super sold on yet. Like,
sure.
I love billboards. They are my fucking favorite. Please do billboards all day. What about TV? Are you doing TV now?
Yes, we are. So what effectively what we did was our video content with social and then OTT served as our boot camp for really what we wanted to do with a broadcast cable type TV advertising approach, right? So we sort of refined things over time, learned lessons along the way, and then we started doing much more significant TV advertising this calendar year. I mean, this is new for us. Okay,
what's the biggest lesson you learned?
That's a good question. I would say that the biggest lesson that we learn and what we want to do across every outlet, okay, every form of media, is we want to convey who we really are. Okay. So that is difficult to do in a 15-second spot.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
You literally answered. My next question was, are you trying to convey that you guys like give a shit, right? Like, how do you convey that and like on television, right? When like so many commercials are like silly or like,
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's difficult. I mean, one thing that we started doing was running longer format spots, ads on TV. And we let our clients do the talking.
I love that.
We had an approach where we were focused on, again, explaining who we are and what our approach is and what our mindset is. And so those longer format spots are expensive.
Yeah, I bet.
They're difficult. The conception and communicating that kind of thing is very, very difficult. It is not difficult to say, call me, call now, I'll fight for you, I'll fight for you, and all that kind of stuff. That's easy.
Yep.
And that's effective, and that works for folks. And maybe we'd be bigger than we are now. I don't know if we had adopted that. But again, it's important for us to communicate who we are and what makes us different, that sort of thing. And so we focused on that. But, my answer is kind of a non-answer because it's so difficult, right? But we're trying to do that.
No, I think that was a great answer. And almost think of it like, how there's been like such a push for people to be authentic. I feel like that actually translates to law firms, right? Like you're trying to show the authenticity of your law firm on a 15-second commercial. That's really, really tough. But I also wonder if you just did the call me, yeah, maybe you get more volume, but are you going to get to some of the higher value cases?
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Maybe not. I'll tell you this. Some of this is heavily influenced by, honestly, just my own personality. I am very much a no BS kind of guy, right?
I know.
I know you do. Just conversationally.
I'm the same way though.
Yeah.
It's why you and I get along. Because there's zero bullshit,
Right. That's not for me. So, adopting that kind of thing or what feels like that for me, I mean, I'm not going to stand in front of a camera and deliver some nonsense. And
it's hard,
I'm just not going to do it.
Well, I think it's really hard when you are an authentic person to do something that doesn't feel authentic to you.
Right.
Right. And like for me personally, my husband's like very funny and like sarcastic and silly. And like I'm just not a silly person. So he'll be like, oh, I have this idea for you to go do this video for Instagram. And I'm like, yeah, no, I can't do that.
Sure. Yeah.
My, videographer standing right there, always trying to get me to do silly things. I'm like, that doesn't feel genuine to me. And I think people can feel it when you're not being genuine, even as a law firm, right? Like, I think that translates and people can tell, what your culture's like when somebody walks into your office. Like there's so much that we don't even know about, like subconsciously what we're picking up on, right?
Sure.
So I do think that all these things are really important, even though I would say some law firms would disagree with us.
I'm sure.
Which is fine.
I'm sure. I've talked to plenty of folks who disagree with that. Plenty of folks in the marketing and advertising space vehemently disagree with that. And ultimately, we're not a good fit to work together and all that. But I wish them well, and their record of success speaks for itself. And that
but so
certainly
that's
well, I hope so.
People are going to say, of course, that this is my opinion, that I'm biased, but I think you did it right. Because the thing with digital is people are actually looking for a lawyer. Whereas when you're building a brand, you need to sustain it for a really long time to then start to see the cases. And it's actually easier for us, not easier, it's faster for us to get results with a firm that has a brand offline because people are searching the brand, right? But I think the smart way to do it, like if I was going to start a law firm, I would first do digital then I would do offline, knowing that by doing offline, it's going to increase. And I think you and I were talking about this earlier. It's going to increase my digital cases because of conversion. Like you're going to convert better if people have seen your brand, right? So you kind of hinted at like having a good culture internally and with your clients, like treating the client well. Do you think that there's a correlation between having a great culture and the way that your clients are treated?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mentioned earlier the concept of this bystander stress, right? And what I mean by that is when you are in any kind of work where people are traumatized, going through difficult times, and just having a bad go of things, when you encounter that, person after person, client after client, day after day, week after week, year after year, right? That can really, really be a drag on you, right? And as attorneys or law firm owners or any kind of professional like that, there's at least the possibility of financial rewards and so forth that come to you by doing this work, right? But we rely so heavily on the not just attorneys, but the non-attorney staff. And all of us have to be fully invested in and understand that there is an important mission, there's an important purpose to what you are doing. Otherwise, if you don't have that and you just have this bystander stress for years on end, and maybe you're not getting paid six figures for that work, right? Well, I mean, how long are you really going to last in that work? How good are you going to be? We have built virtually everything on the foundation of excellent client service and attention and relationships. And if our people, our lawyers, our non-attorneys, if they don't understand the purpose of what we're doing, there is no way that they're going to deliver that good client service or excellent client service is what I require and demand and hope for, right? And so that is wildly important. Now, part of that is culture as well. It has to be a good place to be. I mean, we want a hustle culture at my firm. We want people getting after it. We have a morning meeting every morning with everybody, attorneys and non-attorneys alike.
How many staff members do you have total?
I think it's 65 now.
Wow.
And
Congrats.
12 attorneys. Thanks.
That's really cool.
Thanks. But we talk about getting after it every single day, every single morning. And that's what we want.
Is this a quick call or is it like a...
It's ordinarily very quick.
Okay.
I think we average...
Kind of like a huddle.
It is a huddle.
Okay.
It is effectively the morning huddle. So sometimes those meetings are 4 minutes long. A long one is 20 minutes long, right? I don't know that there are very many times at all that we've ever gone to half an hour for that meeting. It's just not the purpose of that meeting.
And is it just to reinforce the mission?
There's that. There's certainly that. But there's also, some kind of nuts and bolts kind of things that are going on that people across the firm need to know about no matter what their position is. We have a chief community officer now, and that is a C-suite level position. This is my wife who does this, Kim. She's fantastic. I mean, truly, truly, truly very, very gifted with a lot of what she's doing, what I'm about to describe. But her mission is to carry out really, really fostering a healthy internal culture for our group, our internal community, but also focus on external community service and that kind of thing. We've got a number of projects going on now. We have a number of projects that we're considering getting into. But that is a reflection of our firm's approach and emphasis on, we are doing this to help people. We're doing this to have, hopefully, a fantastic place for people to work and have a long career. But also we're doing this to be a positive force in the community. And people don't think of lawyers in that way. People don't think of lawyers in our practice areas in that way, but we are bound and determined to be who we say we are, and who we say we are. We are people who are there to help other folks who are in crisis, right? So we have to not just say that, but we have to carry that out. And people know, people will see out there if that's the truth or not. They'll understand if we're walking the walk, right? But more and more people have begun to see and understand that we really are trying to be exactly who we say we are trying to be. We have focused on doing smaller community events this year.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that we've done that is, we effectively want to learn as we are doing this, how to do things better, more effectively, in a way that positively impacts the community in real ways. But also, I mentioned Kim, who's the chief community officer. Her background includes, I think it was 7 years as the executive director of the South Carolina Center for Children's Books and Literacy.
Oh, wow.
So her job with that was to travel all over South Carolina, and she did a lot of things. But one of the things that she did was do just tons of community events. I'm embarrassed. I don't know how many. I should know. But tons and tons of events around the state of South Carolina in rural schools and urban schools, you name it, to foster literacy. And so her experience there was focused on doing these, smaller events. So we brought that approach to this year's Project Backpack, where we gave away this year 1,000 backpacks with school supplies for kids in need across South Carolina. And I think we did 9 events, something like that. And it was a real success. We're looking forward to learning from that and moving forward. But we have a lot of things kind of in the hopper that we're going to be doing, and we're super excited about that. And we're doing that because it fits. It fits, again, who we are, what we want to do, how we want to be in the world, what we're up to with the law firm.
You know what would be super cute? Random idea. We were traveling this right before the summer, and we stayed at a hotel. I think it was in Florence, and they gave the kids this book. But the hotel made the book.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And it was like the history of Florence. So just give me an idea. It'd be really cute if you guys made a kid's book.
Yeah.
Maybe with since your wife has a background in this, with just teaching the law for kids,
Yeah, that's a nice idea.
That would be really cute. But anyways, okay. Back to this. Now, when did your wife come work at the firm full time?
She was at the University of South Carolina, which is 2 blocks, the campus from our primary office in Columbia. So she came on with us full time probably 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. But she had always, back in the dark ages, she was handling the books, and she was very involved from day one, certainly from the decision to start the firm. But she worked with us and has been involved heavily the whole time. But part of when we decided, okay, we're going to really focus on growing this practice as our kids were getting older and that sort of thing, she came on with us full time, and that's really part of. It was the same time period when things started to take off, really well for us.
I'm a firm believer that there's no one better than your spouse because your interests should be aligned. And as long as they are, it's so powerful. My husband and I co-own LawRank. But okay, so back to the whole culture thing, because I think this is so important because and you've touched on it. This can be such a stressful environment, right? I mean, you can see how many lawyers have alcohol problems or drugs, depression. It's a very, very stressful job.
It
And I
is.
think if you want to provide a great customer experience and you're not addressing the culture of the firm, especially as you grow, because it's very simple when you have 10, 15, maybe 20 employees, because you can have such an impact directly to those, 10, 20 employees. But once you start to grow, because like we've seen it, right? Like we have over 50 employees and it starts to like, you don't have the same impact. So it's like the people in charge of departments, they have to have that impact and it comes from the top, right? So can you touch a little bit more about what you guys do to like really make sure that everybody is, I guess, like providing that great customer experience, even if maybe they are having like a stressful day?
There are many things that we do. We have at our all hands meeting once a month, which is also something that's very, very important to us. Very often when I am addressing the entire team, that's something that we're talking about, right? Just reminding each other of, again, who we are, right? And it's incredibly important. We emphasize this very, very heavily in the interview process, in training, onboarding, and just as part of our ongoing, again, training with our folks, right? When issues arise, client service issues, we take that very, very seriously and we address it in real time, right? So there's that end of things, but there's also the culture aspect of things. Sounds like a bunch of fluff, but it absolutely is not. We have a culture council in the firm that is comprised of members of our team from various roles, and they are very, very intent on making sure that we are both internally and externally focused in this way. And that's been a really, really pleasant surprise over the course of the last several months since we launched this. I'm really, really proud and excited about what those folks are doing, right? And so they have any number of projects going on at any given time, but they know that we take it seriously. They know that that's an important part of things. If you're going to work at Jeffcoat, that you are going to be thinking about this, working on this, and it's a critical piece of things for us.
I will say that everyone that I've communicated with at your firm has been amazing. Like just like positive energy, super friendly, super polite, like just a pleasure to work with. Like,
great.
Yeah. So I could see how that's like impact. Like, yeah, I believe you when you say that, culture is important. And it's funny because when you first mentioned having like a mission, right? I used to work for AT&T and they had it plastered everywhere. And it's like, I always go back to like, how do the big corporations do things in America?
Sure. Yeah.
Right? Because, they have data. Like, they're not just like, I'm sure sometimes they are and they're testing things, but like, that is something you see across big organizations always. They have a mission, they have a purpose, mission statement and a purpose always. Right? But I don't think most firms have this.
I can't speak for most firms. I know that we heavily emphasize this. I believe very, very strongly in something that you mentioned earlier this morning, which is to pay attention to and listen to successful people and pay attention to successful organizations and do what they do. That is critically important, right? So a practice that's common to successful corporations or organizations, otherwise, nonprofits, even whatever. It is critical that you learn from what's out there, right? What's out there can provide all kinds of lessons for successful work, successful living, right? And if there is a practice that they've adopted and shown success with, then like the morning huddle and what have you, or a mission statement or core values that you craft intently, that you mean, that you focus on, that you emphasize, and that you train around, and that you even discipline around when that's necessary.
Yeah.
When folks need to have their course reset, that sort of thing, that is so important. And we certainly didn't come up with that idea, right?
Right.
Not at all. But we're always looking, we're always trying to learn, and we're always trying to adopt things that are going to help us accomplish our mission and what we're up to. This thing is, the firm has my name attached to it, right? And this is our legacy. Hopefully, we're building something that will last beyond my working years. Right. Hopefully, we're building something that will positively impact folks. Yes, I want to make a nice living. Of course I do. But at the same time, it would be so amazing if what we're building, the people that are in our organization now, can take it to the next level and keep on keeping on, right?
Yeah.
And being hopefully great folks who are doing great work and really coming through for people when they're in need. That would be amazing.
Yeah. You touched on something that is like really, I'm like very passionate about. And I even brought it up today during my presentation. And I think I'm going to change it where I bring it up later when like I've like calmed down a little bit, because initially, it's like tough, like the first minute, but it's like this idea of having a growth mindset and like having a positive mindset. And I literally see the clients that just don't have that, and like nothing ever works out for them. But the clients that are willing to learn, are willing to figure things out. And like, I love what you said, like people have figured it out. It's just a matter of like learning, right? I think that is so crucial. And it's funny because everyone that says like, oh, I don't believe in like positive thinking or in mindset, like look at their lives. Like I'm like, I've never met like a super successful law firm that doesn't have one or the other. At least they either have a really positive mindset, or at the very least, they have a growth mindset. They're like, I can figure it out. Like maybe I'm not like the most positive person, but I can figure it out. The ideal business owner has both. And it sounds like you have both.
Well, I hope so. We're trying to do that. I had a great advantage in life in that my folks both came from, just, working class background. I'm very proud of my family, and they're very, very hardworking people. And my folks kind of started taking some additional steps in life. They really wanted to and did emphasize education for my brother and I. And they really were focused on doing better and achieving more and having a bigger impact and a positive impact. And they both, in their own ways, were always very, very focused on really the kind of thing that we're doing now, helping folks who need some help in our area and in South Carolina.
So what are some ways that you are helping folks in your area besides the obvious, which is providing great services and representing? Because it sounds like you do have a lot. Well, I know you have a lot of community involvement, but can you touch on, besides the backpack, what else are you guys doing in the community?
Let me say this. So across our practice areas, all right, our clients, our potential clients, they are very often facing the prospect of getting run over by a very powerful entity, whether it's the government, whether it's an insurance company, whether it's a corporate defendant, whatever, who has often unlimited resources, right? And what I've seen over the years, and a lot of my brothers and sisters in the law have seen over the years who handle these kinds of cases, they see that the deck is stacked against folks, right? Sometimes it's someone who hasn't done anything wrong and they have some charges they're facing. Very often they're facing 12 charges when it should be 2 or something like that. Very often they're facing the prospect of maybe what really is some excessive punishment for what's really happened. Or in the case of a PI client, you have corporate defendants or an insurance company on the other side. And I've seen people just get bulldozed, right? Not so much my clients, but folks who didn't call us or should have called us or what have you. And so if we can answer their phone calls, right, and sit down and look at them in the eye and level with them and be on their side and have their back, right, when otherwise they are probably going to get run over by this potentially a big bully, right, big, powerful bully. I mean, that in and of itself is an act of service. I mean, it's an absolute act of service.
Especially in the legal space where the number one complaint is my lawyer doesn't call me back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Don't get me started.
Yeah. I mean, that's,
so,
I think that's huge. I think if collectively that changed, the perception of lawyers would change.
I think if and hopefully our people think this through. Hopefully our people on our team are aware of this. But if someone is in that situation and they've been jerked around by an insurance adjuster or whomever, okay, and then the people that they go to for help don't respond to them, don't listen to them, don't talk to them, right? Don't answer their questions. I mean, what is that? I mean, what's the point of that, right? Just to vacuum some fees out of the situation and then go on, right?
No,
and buy a big boat? That's not for us.
No, and you're adding anxiety to the situation.
Of course.
So it's like you're just making everything worse and you're setting yourself up for not a positive review or no review at all, which, on the digital side, and you guys do a great job, we need those reviews, right? So it's like it's all connected, right? Like there's so much synergy from intake to customer success to getting the case settled or taken to trial. Like it's like one big circle. It's just literally loops right back around, right?
But again, this goes back to, I view the whole thing, my career, my practice, the whole thing as legacy, right? That is what is important to me and to us, right? And so to that end, because we are trying to positively impact folks' lives, and because I am not a small talk, chit-chat, BS kind of guy at all, I think it fits together. And I think we're at least on the path of communicating that to folks in our area who we're trying to serve.
Well, I also think it's so much more fulfilling to do something that feels right to you versus to only make it about the money.
Yes, absolutely.
Like that's a recipe for disaster on a personal level, in my opinion.
Right.
So like you've made it so that what you do, yes, you make good money, but it also is fulfilling for you.
That's right.
And your staff, hopefully.
Right? I hope so. If we have the right people on the bus,
right,
then it is. If we have the right team members, that it matters to them. And look, it's not going to matter to every single person on our team the way it does to me. Very few folks are going to necessarily fit that profile, but it matters to our group, our organization, our mission, our approach, all these things that we've talked about just a few minutes ago, with the values and the culture and the mission and all that stuff. It matters a lot.
Love it. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much to Michael for everything he shared with us today. If you found this story valuable, please share it with someone you want to see succeed. Subscribe so you never miss an episode, and leave a 5-star review. It really does go a long way to help others discover the show.